relax. It's Afternoon Karak with Aisha Al-Mazmi and Mikhail Atiyah.
On Pulse 95.
I've got some more first world problems for all of you.
Who doesn't?
I mean, this one is just, it was the epitome.
The epitome.
Epitome? Oh my God.
Is that what
really?
it means? Epitome or epitome?
Is that how you pronounce it? Goodness.
Sorry.
No, you're right. You're right.
I don't know who's wrong here.
I think you're right.
Yeah?
I think you're right.
I would give myself a clap.
I mean, it's very funny because I've heard the word epitome so many times.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I read it, in my head, it just refuses to read it as epitome.
It doesn't sound like an English word in the first place.
I just don't like the fact how English has like the rules are too loose. I mean, the only rule that I've memorized is I before E except after C, but there are so many exceptions to that rule. So is it even a rule? Like, English, get your stuff together.
Thank our ancestors for invading random countries across the world and mixing the English with everything else.
Honestly, English is just a bit of a mess, but we love it. We speak it, unfortunately.
It's flawed, just like we are.
Honestly, that is true. We speak this language. It's a universal language, and thank God for that. And it is, has advantages and disadvantages. So we're not going into the socioeconomic impact of the English language. We're talking about my first world problems. And again, the epitome, thanks, Mikhail, of the, of first world problems. Okay, so as one does at 5 a.m. when instead of going to sleep, I was adding stuff to my shopping bag on one of those shopping apps. Just keep adding stuff, looking at them, and I'm like, those look nice. But you know what? I'm going to leave the decision making for awake Aisha rather than half asleep Aisha, because she might be making some mistakes. Maybe I changed my mind, and I know the thing is I had some really nice deals on a lot of the clothes I got. It was worth it.
And then you wake up in the morning, it's like, whoa, how did 800 dirhams just get out of my account?
No, actually, I told you I did not put. I told you I left the decision for awake me.
That's
I'm
good.
like, I'll make the decision later. I'm not gonna fall into this trap, even though some of the stuff are tailor made, so they might take over 2 weeks. And I'm like, maybe it's okay, Aisha. One day is not gonna harm you. You can wait a little bit. So I woke up earlier today, and the application, they send you WhatsApp messages sometimes instead of text messages, and they said that they extended the Emirati Women's Day offer, and I was like, great, I get more discounts now. So they gave the discount code, and I was gonna use it, but I see that the app was just loading and loading and loading. There was a connection error.
Because you're not the only Emirati woman with the same idea.
I don't know, or maybe like there was something wrong with the app. I have no idea. So I was like, let me just restart the app. But that was a mistake because I lost everything in my shopping bag.
Oh no.
And I don't remember what half asleep Aisha was buying. I don't remember. I was not awake.
I am figuratively hugging you.
Like, do you understand the pain of that? Now I need to go back and try to jog my already awful memory, trying to remember what on earth did I put in my shopping bag last night? Because all I remember is that they were gorgeous dresses. But do you remember what these dresses are? No. I remember maybe 2 of them. I wish I put most of them in my wish list or something, but it's going to require a lot of, hard work and concentration for the next couple of hours.
As William Dafoe would say in Spider-Man, you know how much I've sacrificed.
Basically, I sacrificed all of my sleep trying to look for these dresses, and now I need to go over again and try it again. But at least some good news, and that is the afternoon Karak. You guys can enjoy some time with us because we do have a really cool review of the Candyman. It's Nia DaCosta's long-awaited horror thriller slasher movie that is produced by Jordan Peele.
Yes, also, we're also having a little bit of celebration. Bittersweet, you could say. And also, we're talking about Netflix. They're testing out the mobile gaming feature on their platform, but in a particular country. This is the stepping stone for something a little bit more promising in the near future. Also, Elden Ring, Bandai Namco just had sort of like a private press presentation of what we can expect, and then they just let all the journalists go online and talk in exquisite detail what we can expect from this game. No gameplay footage, all sorts of details, and that's where we come in to dissect it and find all the necessary highlights on what you can expect from this game.
And we're also going to be talking about the Lion King live-action prequel. Barry Jenkins has cast 2 characters as young Mufasa and young Scar. This is only some of the things we're going to be talking about, so join in the conversation and keep Pulse 95 locked to tune in to the Afternoon Karak.
Is it an epic or epic failure? The Big Review. Movies, games, and TV in focus.
Pulse 95.
The long-awaited slasher horror movie, The Candyman, is out finally. It was out last week and we got to watch it, even though we've been waiting for it for such a long time. And it is created by, or at least directed by, Nia Costa and produced by Jordan Peele's company Monkey Paw. And it is a direct sequel to the 90s movie, which is based on a bunch of short stories from a book. Now let's get deep into it. So the story follows Anthony as he's like sort of an artist, like a well-known artist, and he's trying to find some sort of inspiration. And then he hears about Cabrini Green, which is like sort of the project in Chicago, and he hears about the Candyman, and basically him delving deep into the legend causes some interesting twists and turn of events. And as usual, we're gonna try our bestest not to give away any spoilers to the movie.
Yeah, I found out when I was watching this movie about the classic film because I wanted to compare it. It is a direct sequel and it does harken back to the classic.
Yeah.
There was also 2 other movies made in 1995 and 1998. Don't watch those.
Don't watch those, no.
They have that really bad sequelitis thing to them. But to this movie's credit, what I really, really liked about it is that it took the mythology of the Candyman and it sort of expanded on it in the sense where it's just not one ghost or one vengeful spirit, but it's one of many, and it represents an entire group within Chicago's neighborhood.
Exactly, and the thing is, this is part of the essence of the Candyman, and I think it is very important that when you watch this movie, perhaps watch or at least read about the previous ones, or you can definitely do what I did, which is watch this movie and then went backwards, because it does give away some things from the previous movie because it is a direct sequel. Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. Now we have to get into the fact that this is one of the few horror movies that we probably watch that actually just feels like I'm being told a story. There is a plot to it. I don't think there were any jump scares, even though there were sudden movements.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know how a jump scare feels? I did not get any of that. Even when there is, the Candyman appearing in the mirror, because it's all about the mirroring world and the bees and the whole motif surround the character. You can tell that he's going to appear here, he's going to show up here, he's going to do this and he's going to do that, which also kind of shows you as a somebody watching the story, as the audience. It emphasizes that as you watch the journey of Anthony as he unravels this whole mystery and how he's involved in it or becomes involved in it. And I really enjoyed it, that it literally felt like I'm actually watching a movie and I'm not gripping on my chair because I'm awaiting another jump scare, because it's not some kind of cheap movie that's trying to sell some just cheap tricks, even though we can say that jump scares are part of the horror movie, but we can also very confidently say that for the past maybe 20-30 years, it's been overused. I mean, 90% of the movies becomes jump scares and sudden movements and sudden music, but that was not there in this movie.
This movie has this feeling where the more you watch it and the more they talk about this urban legend, this terror, bit by bit, the idea, the threat starts to slowly creep into your head. And whenever a character starts to do the dare, which is to say his name 5 times in front of a mirror, I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Exactly.
And when you get that feeling, you're in it. Like you're like in a campfire listening to a horror story in the middle of the forest, and you're really hoping something doesn't creep out of the shadows, but it does, and in a very in a very in an unsettling kind of way. I love some of the tricks they've used here where you don't really see him in real life, but whenever it pans close to a mirror, you get to only see glimpses of him. They never show him in his fullest form, and even if you do, it's just for a split second.
Exactly.
And that sticks in your brain.
It was super enjoyable to watch this movie because, again, it was sort of dissecting the horror genre, and it's giving us another perspective. It is very Jordan Peele. There is a reason why Jordan Peele put his money in this movie. It has his touch in it, even though it is not his movie, because, again, we need to give credits where credits are due. It is Nia DaCosta's movie, and we have to talk about the cast as well. Yahya Abdel-Mateen, Tiana Paris were just phenomenal in this movie. They did a great job, especially Yahya himself, because he was trying to portray this character. Again, we're not going to give you some spoilers, but you guys can kind of figure out what happens more or less halfway, or maybe the beginning of the movie. It's very obvious what happens, but he's trying to portray a very problematic character that is there's so many emotions going through him, whether it's fear, excitement, there's lots of things going on, lots of contradictions within him, and we're going to be talking about this. We're going to expand on this further right here on the Afternoon Karak, so stay tuned for more of our review on the Candyman.
Pulse 95.
We are continuing our extensive review for the horror thriller slasher Candyman. This movie recently just came out. We've managed to watch it, and we've been talking a lot about some of the stylized techniques in terms of how they're depicting the threat in the movie, the acting itself. But with Jordan Peele being involved, you know that there's a social commentary, some sort of social-political, social-economic kind of commentary that comes with it. And I think that's one of the best parts about the movie, is that its themes are downright glaring at you. Like it's right there, front and center. And it also almost becomes like the epicenter of the mythology, the horror mythology of Candyman. You find out in the film, we won't talk too much about it, but the reason why the urban legend exists is almost kind of like a coping mechanism for the reality of people's life in Chicago, the gentrification of the neighborhood, what it once was, and now trying to become part of like a modern, part of like this upward modern society, and almost like leaving the marginalized people almost like thrown out of their own homes. And he's sort of like the byproduct of the pain, the suffering, and the agony. And there's one scene in this film that like it struck the terror in my heart. I get it now. I get the whole fear behind police brutality. I get the whole thing about Black Lives Matter. It's just it's a very subtle scene, and I won't talk too much about it. But there was a scene where a cop just walks into a door, right? And the child's just looking upwards, and he's thinking that help is coming along the way. But when he sees the police face, he becomes even more fearful. And it's like, wow, that is such a powerful scene. And it's almost like the entire center theme of the whole film,
And if anybody thinks that this is just theatrics or jumping onto a bandwagon, to remind you that this is a sequel to a movie back from the 90s, and the theme of police brutality and basically the racial injustices in the system in the United States has been an ongoing topic for many, many years and many generations, and this is just highlighted once again in this movie. And let's talk about the camera angles. Let's talk about the use of puppeteering in storytelling, because that added a sense of mysticism. Even the way when they're talking about the story of Helen from the previous movie, when they use the puppets, and basically it just feels very much like it just adds to the level of just a level of storytelling, a level of another side of urban legends. Because when you think of urban legends, don't think of yourself as part of it, because you're so taken aback, you're so far away from, the story is so far away from reality that you kind of see it from a different point of view. You're as if you're reading a book, so that kind of gave it off in a very visual narrative kind of aspect, and I loved every part of it. whenever they talked about the Candyman and they just showed that, I enjoyed it. It just added another layer of experience to this movie.
It's kind of like a dark fairy tale, except the fairy tale exists. It's true. And you don't want to be looking straight in mirrors.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that's the sort of feel you get with this movie. And so for me, Candyman, it was a surprise. It's a surprise hack and sort of slasher horror thriller that honestly, I'm going to go back and rewatch it for multiple interpretations, for some of the commentary that's behind it.
The last scene, the last sentence before it ends.
Yeah.
That one was really good. And the way Tiana's face, the way it changes, even at the... We try not to give away too many spoilers a little bit. But yeah, just her face and her expressions in the last, let's say, 10 minutes of that movie, the experiences that she goes through is just chilling, mind-numbing. And again, it crosses the spectrum between the reality of police brutality and the reality of living as a Black person in America, plus the whole, the horror aspect, the magic aspect, it's so intriguing and so fun to watch, which is why I give it like an easy 8 out of 10 for me.
For me as well, an 8 out of 10. It feels like a restoration project for a once static slasher movie.
A successful one.
But one that carries a lot of meaning now and has so much to tell its audience, and even makes you like scared of not just the urban legend, but of your own reality.
Absolutely. And this is, just a great accolade for Nia DaCosta. Just creating this movie was amazing. And it was, we thank her for it because it was a fun, enjoyable experience. I'm not going to say that most of the movies to the past couple of months have been boring or underwhelming. I mean, you can see all our reviews have been kind of average. But to add this movie is like, an honor to add into our library of movies that we have watched. And we're not done with our reviews. Later on, next week, we're going to be talking about the long-awaited Shang-Chi. But for now, we do have a celebration coming up right here on the afternoon Karak coming up next.
This is Pulse 95.
Not too long ago, Michaela and I were talking about some certain rumors based on, some facts here and there that perhaps Netflix is expanding towards video games, especially after when they dabbled sort of in a video game-esque kind of thing with their series Black Mirror in season 4. And now everything has been officially confirmed with their latest Stranger Things game.
Yes, and Netflix is one step closer to making their platform a little bit more video game friendly, as they've announced last Thursday that they're rolling out the first attempt in the company's long in the works effort to break into gaming, but it's having a limited test run only for Android devices in the country of Poland. Netflix is now stress testing the platform and seeing how it works. Besides any details, we don't know. Only know that Stranger Things 3, the arcade game, is the only thing that's available at the moment and being played for. Now, I know there were people asking a while back, will this be added to a subscription? Like, will we have to pay a little extra for this? And Netflix has reiterated that no, this will be part of the subscription package.
And what's interesting is that they're trying their best to keep the games free of ads and free of in-app purchases, which is super interesting because it's making you wonder, how are they going to profit off of this? Like, we know that perhaps in comparison to how Disney Plus's consumer base have been increasing month by month, same goes for HBO Max in comparison to Netflix, even though Netflix is still leading in numbers, simply because Netflix has existed way longer than those applications. And also, to add to that, Netflix exists all across the world internationally, so they have a head start. So I'm very surprised that they're not even including in-app purchases, or at least I would say, like, for me, I would go for maybe in-app purchases over adding maybe an extra amount to your subscription, or actually both work, because if you're not interested in video games, you can just simply opt out of it, and it could be something as low as maybe $2.99 or $3 just to add, just the extra thing for people who actually do want to try out these games versus people who just want a regular subscription.
From what I understand, Netflix will just slowly but gradually only do mobile games. And mobile games always have some sort of business design behind it where it's a freebie, but it's got microtransactions
Exactly,
of some
but that's
sort.
what they're saying. No microtransactions.
Oh, okay.
No in-app purchases. So this is my question. How are they profiting off of this?
I think it's just trying to get gamers, just tapping into people who want a little bit more for their buck,
Again, the people who have already subscribed to Netflix, because unlike people who maybe have changed their minds, I feel like Netflix became a staple part of my life. I don't think there would be going back unless Netflix does something really, really, really bad, because Netflix is one of my main sources of entertainment, and it's the main source of entertainment for a lot of people, especially, again, internationally, where Amazon Prime has barely spread its wings into. Disney Plus, HBO Max, Peacock still do not exist in these markets. So Netflix is the dominant one, especially as they start adding more and more local and diverse options. I've been seeing a lot more Arab and Emirati content there. Same goes for anybody across the entire world. So it is still winning within that aspect. So I feel like nobody's really going to be like, I don't want to use Netflix anymore. I'm going to remove it, except, again, for specific and very strong, rare reasons.
I think the strategic advantage would be then that they would hopefully gain new subscribers because of this. Hopefully, when this rolls out globally, we can get a chance to try it out ourselves.
Definitely.
Only me, I guess, because I have Android. And then later they'll put on iOS. But
I feel like by the time they do roll it out internationally, they're going to have to include iOS, because even though it depends on different countries, but I feel like the majority or a good chunk of people have iPhones in comparison to Androids. And Mikhail, we do have Androids at home. I can just borrow one of them and just use them.
I just wanted to throw a little shade.
The shade just goes right back, just did it at 180 degrees and went right back at you.
You
can try again
I
later.
expected that,
You can try again later. But we have not gotten a chance to try out Elden Ring, but several people did across various well-known game journalism sites. We're going to be talking about the Elden Ring preview that, even though it was quite short, it was filled with information. Coming up next right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
George R.R. Martin might be still struggling to finish the latest Game of Thrones book, but he did do his job when it comes to the Elden Rings game that is going to be coming out sooner, hopefully rather than later, as fans long await this very interesting game. We got a preview of it not too long ago, and now some game journalists just got another in-depth preview. I think it was around 15-20 minutes of it, but through that they managed to dig out some very important things, and I feel like one of my favorite ones is that your choices matter.
Okay, that's probably a new approach to the what we call the Soulsborne series. They always had like choice-oriented things, but that would only be as an ending thing. Like you get a dark ending or a good ending, depending. But to have where like a butterfly effect, where every choice you make in a particular part of the story will impact the rest of the path that you take.
Yeah.
Definitely something I'm looking forward to. Another thing is that these journalists did not they really just straight up said, guys, it's no exaggeration, the world of Elden Ring is humongous. It is in every shape and form an open world, and FromSoftware has almost like affirmed that it's more than just an open world. The design of levels and the new types of enemies out there and the bosses along the way is sort of accommodated to the vastness of the world itself. Your mount is going to be sort of like a ghostly companion that will take you across the world of Elden Ring as well.
And I think what is the most interesting thing is because when you say massive world, because it reminds me of like games such as Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which at some point I'm like, goodness, please, this is just so annoying. I cannot do it. And sometimes it was kind of hard to fast travel, especially when you're trekking for such a long time. They say rest assured, because there are going to be some mechanisms to help you traverse back and forth faster. You can actually fast travel in the game, which I think is super important when it comes to the enjoyability of such games, because when you come to a game that you want the player to play for such a long time, you want them to focus on the missions more rather than focusing on, oh my god, I need to ride from point A to point B, and that's going to take the most time of my game, and it's going to remove some elements of enjoyment, because that is certainly a factor that a lot of video game developers forget about. Because if I'm spending 20 real-time minutes trying to get from one point to another, I'm gonna get bored. And I'm not gonna want to continue playing this game if one point of the mission is here and the other is over there. It's gonna take me way too long, and I'm not gonna enjoy the game anymore.
You're absolutely right. Another thing FromSoftware discussed was how there will be a lot of sort of like these dungeons or dungeon experiences that they've handcrafted to be complex and multi-layered. And so it means that when players traverse there, even well-seasoned players, it will definitely be one of those experiences where it's worth exploring. It's very risky, but it's also rewarding, and it will always scale depending on how many players, because it has a co-op feature as well where you can invite players and so that the dungeons themselves scale with the amount of players as well. So it's a world that's adapting to the players, it's adapting to their skill, and sort of like your personal progression throughout the game and the story.
Anyway, even though I haven't played any Soulsborne game, but it feels very an accumulation of every single game they've created, whether it's Bloodborne, any of the Souls game, Sekiro, all together, and they've created this game, which I feel in a way is a lot more inviting than the other games, in the sense that it's very much traditional to the original Soulsborne game, every single one of them. But at the same time, it feels like it's telling all the other players, including myself, who are probably too scared to try out a Souls game or Bloodborne, even though, you know what, a Bloodborne looks so interesting. The mythos is just so interesting. I really want to play it, but I'm very terrified of the mechanics of the game. I feel like perhaps this one is the most inviting one, basically telling people of all kinds, just try it out. This might be the game, basically what they would call like an invite into the world of Soulsborne, and perhaps you can go backwards and try out the other games as well.
You're right. A few friends of mine, even my brother, he's like, "You're gonna play Elden Ring, right?" I'm like, I know, because I was halfway through Bloodborne and I gave up on that game.
I don't blame you.
It tortured me to death.
Sekiro was gonna be that game for me, but honestly, I just enjoyed watching people's YouTube videos a lot more than playing that game. So honestly, looking forward to the game when it comes out in January across all kinds of consoles, and maybe by that time I would have my PS5, so that can be one of the first games I try out on my new console. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about Barry Jenkins' The Lion King prequel, a prequel to the live-action movie that came out not too long ago. They finally cast Scar and Mufasa when they're younger. Coming up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
Pulse 95.
I feel a lot of us were kind of surprised when, actually surprised but not surprised, let's be very honest, when Disney announced there's going to be another movie for The Lion King, another live action, because even though it had a lot of, let's say, negative emotions towards, a lot of people did not like the animation and the approach that was taken, it was a box office hit.
It brought the big bucks.
Oh, definitely. So at the same time, it was like, we should have seen it coming. And we are getting a prequel to the Lion King story starring Scar and Mufasa. Now, the thing is, they don't say it's Scar. They call him by his original name, Taka.
Okay. And probably they're going to take a few notes from the animated films. But this can be first ever original for the Lion King series as well. I know they're going to bring in some great voice actors, and it's the whole cast member hasn't been fully realized, or at least fully announced. For me, my concern is the artistic choice that they're going to go, the sort of the direction in terms of the animation. Are they going to maybe do some improvements, or are they really going to double down on this style of animation?
That's a very good question, because again, despite the fact that it was again garnered a lot of hate towards it, but even the hate and anger was a small community. It wasn't a big, even though everybody was very loud on the internet, it was very concentrated. Like you and I were probably very much against it. I remember when I spoke about the movie, I was like, the animation, I felt that it was kind of lackluster. They could have added a little bit of depth here and there.
Not even Beyonce could have saved it. I'm kidding.
Beyonce only did her part in the music, and that was successful in its own way. But when it comes to the animation, I fully agree with you. It was kind of weird. They could have added a little bit, like a whole layer maybe of expressions.
This is their chance, you know?
This is their chance, but again, 1.6 billion globally.
That's when I keep my mouth shut.
That is like when, okay, we hear you, but $1.6 billion globally, was it really a bad thing? Was it really a bad choice? So it all goes back to Barry Jenkins because he was the previous director of the first movie. So it goes back to him like making those choices. But now we know that we're going to get an Aaron Pierre as Mufasa and Calvin Harrison Jr. as Taka, who was later going to be known as Scar.
Lion King prequel. Tell us what you think. Text us 4215 in Salanta Urdu. We're closing close to the 5 p.m. sharp clock down. Be sure to tune in. We have one final suggestion for the hour.
It's almost 5 p.m.
That was Afternoon Karak. For dessert,
Aisha and Mikhail suggest...
Aisha and Mikhail, firstly and foremost, suggest that all of you should be subscribing to our podcast, because if you missed out on any of our conversation, that includes the Candyman review, we spoke about the Elden Ring game, and we also spoke about lemon juice. So many things you might have missed out on. So check out our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Search up The Afternoon Karak. Again, wherever you listen to podcasts, and that includes Spotify and Rami, Apple Podcast, and SoundCloud, etc., etc. You can also check out our YouTube. We do have a channel where our videos are uploaded. You can search up Pulse 95 Radio, subscribe, like, and comment, and move on to Mikhail's suggestion.
So today was the first day my sisters had to begrudgingly wake up for the morning. They got those online classes.
Mikhail, you wake up in the morning every day of your life. What are you talking about?
I'm just saying, I woke up today with a smile on my face.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, because usually my sisters stay up.
How the turntables, huh?
How the turntables. But my suggestion is that, with the class starting up, I suggest to keep your equipment simple. I know you already have your laptop, you use your phone, but I think always have a notebook, but not any kind of just one type of notebook. Get the 5 subject, 6 subject notebooks that are for that will help you that will be there for you for the entire semester. You don't need all these other books or notebooks. Just have one, like a 5, 6-in-1 type of notebook, and you're good to go.
I just wanted to add to that, if you do not like putting everything in one notebook, because back in undergrad, that's what I used to do. But then eventually later on, I found out that I really like getting those thinner books, like they're very thin notebooks. But what's nice about them is that they're exactly the same, and you can buy them in packs. They're like brown and very thin, because then they can fit in your bag, and you can also set them up very nicely, and you can easily write the name of the subject at the front. So if you're the other type of person who doesn't like putting everything in one notebook, go ahead and try out those notebooks. But basically, listen to Mikhail, keep everything simple and tidy. Again, write the title of the subject if you need to outside to make your life easier. And good luck in the beginning of the semester. Hope you guys are doing well and you're going to be doing well. Don't worry, it's all going to end. You're going to enter the life of the adult world. Which is like going to come out of nowhere, guys. Don't worry. This is not going to be that bad. It's going to be good. We're going to be waiting for you on the other side. And so will Big Hass as he takes over the airwaves right here on Pulse 95. We've got Yellow Home keeping you entertained from 5 p.m. all the way to 8 p.m. only here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.